begin, let me say that we're very full today, and there actually are open pews there, so you don't have to stand if you don't want to, or scooch in too close to each other. Plenty of space right up front here. Somehow I just got the sudden inspiration to ask everyone to turn off their cell phones. The Lord works in mysterious ways. All right, now that we're all kind of settled, would you please join me in the call to worship? I'll begin where it says pastor, and you read the bolded parts. Relatives and friends, let us begin our time together by being reminded of the Spirit that has brought us to this time and place. For Christ has been raised from the dead so that we can say, O death, where is your victory? O grave, where is your sting? Thanks be to God, who in Jesus Christ has shown us that there is life beyond the grave.
We have come to this place to celebrate the fact that in Jesus Christ we have victory over life and death. We have come to this place to celebrate the life, love, and spirit of King Merell, and the memorable experiences we have shared.
Our presence here affirms the fact that there exists a great eternal power within us called love, and this shall never die. It's the Spirit of love that has brought us here today.
It is the living Spirit of God's love that has brought us together. It is our love for each, love for one another, and love for life.
Let us unite our spirits in praising God, who brings life out of death and hope out of despair.
close the gate. For this one fallen, the lilies are over. Lie down and rest your head. Your time has been and struggles enough. Put the tractor in the shed. These were not easy, many done right hard, but your faith in God descended. Put away your tools and sleep in peace. The fences have all been mended. You raised us in family, work the land well, and always follow the sun. Hang up your shovel inside of the barn. The work here on earth is done. The faith you possess, that your journey through life, often a jagged and stony way. The sun is setting, the cattle are all feathered, and here now is the end of your day. Your love of God's soil has passed on your kin. The stories flow like fine wine. Wash off your work boots in the puddle left by blessed rain one final time. You always believe that the good Lord will provide, and He always has somehow. Take off your gloves and put them down. No more sweat and worry for you now. Your labor is done. Your home now is heaven. No must you wait. The legacy lives on. You love the land, and we will close the gate.
Shells are falling and I'm running out of breath. Keep me in your heart for a while. If I leave you, it doesn't mean I love you any less. Keep me in your heart for a while. When you get up in the morning and you'll sing that crazy song. Keep me in your heart for a while. Oh, there's a train leaving night, we're going to set it down. Keep me in your heart for a while. Sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la. Keep me in your heart for a while. Sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la. Keep me in your heart for a while. Sometimes when you're doing simple things around the house, maybe you will think of me and smile. Oh, you know that I am tied to you like the buttons on your blouse. Keep me in your heart for a while. Hold me in your thoughts and take me to your dreams. Touch me as I fall into you. And when the winter comes, keep the fires lit, and I will be right next to you. Engine drivers headed north to Pleasant Street. Keep me in your heart for a while. All these wheels they keep turning, but they're running out of steam. In your hot for one, sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la. In your hot for one, sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la. In your hot for one. In your heart for one, in your heart for one, in your heart for one.
Thank you, Mike.
Let me know, you can wave a hand if you can't hear me. Pete was 14 when I left home for college, so many of you knew him better than I did, but these are some of my memories. My earliest memory is not of Pete himself, but of an offer to trade him for a jackrabbit. A man who was painting our porch said he would give me his nice jackrabbit if I would give him my new baby brother. I hesitated, tempted. How to choose. I didn't know much about jackrabbits or baby brothers either. Finally, I made the right decision. My hesitation, however, became part of a family legend, and eventually Pete used it in a composition for English class. He entitled it Peter or the Rabbit. I didn't ask to read it. Another of our family legends was Pete's early interest in music. He wasn't yet a year old when Nellie and Kenneth Gallant took care of him for a while in the summer. When Kenneth played the violin, Pete was always wide-eyed and attentive. It was no surprise then that Pete's first instrument was the violin. Only recently did I learn that he had really wanted to play the trombone, but was told the instrument would be too large for him. Pete played in school and district orchestras, even though the violin was not his first love. As a child, Pete took music lessons, he took piano lessons, but stopped before he reached junior high. Then, as a high school student, he took notes in a couple of books that were always on the piano. For some reason, the Civil War song, "Tenting Tonight on the Old Campground," appealed to him. He played it over and over until he was playing with both hands and no music. By the time he went to college, he had quite an extensive repertoire of pieces he played by ear. In college, while waiting to audition for the Men's Glee Club, he sat down at the piano and began to play. The director heard him and thought he was coming for an audition to be accompanist. It was a compliment to his playing, but Pete was there to sing. He enjoyed being in the Glee Club and had fond memories of those golden moments. Pete did have one solo that I remember. I went with Mother to a Parents' Day luncheon at his fraternity. To our surprise, he sang a song I didn't remember hearing before. It was a song, a son's song to his mother, and our mother was touched. As most of you know, music remained an important part of Pete's life. He would have loved to hear you singing today the way you sang with this first hymn. He sang in the church choir and constantly added to his repertoire. His specialty was background music. The last time I heard him play was after a birthday party. While the rest of us chatted at the table, Pete drifted off to the piano and played one song after another. It was just loud enough for us to hear, but not so loud that it interfered with conversation. We all enjoyed the music, including Pete, who I think much preferred making music to making small talk. Small talk was not his strong point. In addition to music, there was another M word that had a major role in Pete's life from childhood on. That word, machinery. After World War II, the workhorses, Molly and Prince, were replaced with a small gray tractor that I remember as a Ford Ferguson. Pete was still quite small, but was soon driving it. He practiced his plowing in the garden, and accidentally, on purpose, plowed up the asparagus bed. He had never cared for asparagus. Long before he could drive on the road, he learned to drive the car and trucks on the farm. Then he turned his attention to me. My 16th birthday came and went, and I didn't apply for a learner's permit. To speed things up, he set up cardboard boxes in the driveway to represent cars and proceeded to instruct me in the fine art of parallel parking. I was nearly an old lady of almost 17 when I got my license. Pete, of course, wasted no time getting his driver's license. By then, he also realized that although he'd been saving to buy a tractor, a car might be very useful. It was a second-hand maroon Ford, as I remember, and was lovingly maintained, although it never quite met Pete's standards for performance, I think. While in college, Pete was a teaching assistant in a course known as hairpin mechanics, in other words, machinery for girls. We were called college girls in those days. I don't know which Pete enjoyed more, the mechanics or the girls. As the years went by, the tractors, trucks, and other items of farm machinery got bigger and more sophisticated. The boy on that little gray tractor probably never imagined that someday he would be driving a huge tractor, sitting in an air-conditioned cab, listening to his favorite music as he plowed multiple rows with each trip across the field. I wish that Pete could have had a longer life, and I wish he had enjoyed better life, better health during these last few years, but he had a full life. He was part of an amazing transformation in dairy farming, and as a son, brother, husband, father, and grandfather, he was part of a growing and ever-changing family, a family that he loved, a family that loved him and will cherish his memory. When I said goodbye to Pete in October, I thought it might be our last time together. It was a beautiful fall day. We went to look at Carol's apple trees, and then on to the house where we had lived as children. Parts of the house were very old and had undergone numerous changes. Now the house was taking on a new life as a farm office. Together, Pete and I recalled the past and imagined a future that seemed to hold promise for coming generations. For me, and I think for Pete, there was also a sense of completion. It was a good time to say goodbye.
Okay, I think I hope I have the family order right next is George. And you're free to use this walking mic? Yep, come on. That's George, yes. You can get up front here or use this one, whichever is more comfortable. Yeah, okay, great.
I hope I'm the right George. As Kate said, what beautiful singing came out of this church, and what a wonderful tribute to Pete all of you are. I did not know Pete as well as many of you in this church, but the hours we spent together over these many years were some of my most pleasant and fond memories. Pete had the sharpest and most subtle sense of humor I have ever experienced. I like to call it the twinkle in his eye that was always there. We, Merell and I, seem to have always known Pete's family. Merell's dad, my father-in-law, Ralph Morgan, was a classmate of Pete's dad, Harold, at Cornell. My mother-in-law, Mabel Walker Morgan, was a classmate of Pete's mother, Charlotte, at Cornell. Pete was behind me at Cornell, but his sister, Kate, who you just heard from, was a classmate
that married my fraternity brother, Frank Dennis, in the chapel at Cornell. I helped celebrate that event by ushering. So our families go back a few years. Back in 1978, Mary Lou and I went on a dairy tour to Arizona, Nevada, and California. On our tour with us were Pete and Carol Merell, and also John and Evie Lightfoot, Evie sitting over there, from Stanley, New York. That tour was to influence our methods of farming and all our plans for the future for the next 38 years. We, the three couples, paid a lot of attention and took detailed and copious notes. Pete and Carol with their son John, John and Evie with their sons Larry, Fred, and Russ, and Mary Lou and I with son John have spent the last 38 years developing the efficiencies that our trip to California had taught us. Carol had an aunt in Las Vegas, and we were there on Palm Sunday. While the rest of our tour group was sleeping in after a night of floor shows, the three of us, the three couples, squeezed into Carol's aunt's car. And I think probably Pete and Carol had to go in the back of the station wagon because there were no seats. But anyway, it was crowded. It was a church service I will never forget. The preacher had a sash on his garment with pictures of clowns. Nevada is rodeo country. And when the bull rider is thrown and the bull is charging, a clown will jump in and attract the bull's attention and give the rider a chance to save himself. The preacher's message that day was, when you get in a tough spot, God will send in the clowns if you ask him. At the end of the service, the preacher had us, all six of us, and the rest of the congregation, take our little palms, leave the chapel, walk down Main Street in Las Vegas, and there we were, and back into the church as people up and down Main Street coming and going from the casinos saw little evidence of religion in that city. When you travel with Pete and Carol, the event will always be memorable. I mentioned that Pete had this keenest sense of humor. I want to read you the Christmas email I received from him. I love the humor in it. Pete was a pilot, and he loved flying. His reference to the downward spiral is a flying term that you have to pull out of. In rereading it, I now realize Pete knew he was in deep trouble. And it was time to bring in the clowns. Hi, Merell and George. Hope you and your family are well and enjoying retirement. When I wasn't able to keep the pace this fall, packing the bunk, I suggested that maybe a partial retirement might be in order. I told them that my good friend George was allowed to push out hedgerows and do other useful jobs on the farm that could be done at a more relaxed rate. They, John and family, they allowed me to continue my part-time job as equipment rooms manager, but was somehow able to find others to do the important stuff. Like, he goes on, like any good farmer, I look for year-end bargains, and this year I landed a holiday special at the Cleveland Clinic, where they hope to try another ablation procedure next week. I'm hopeful I can get another year if they can do the procedure. I've had to curtail my flying, sex, and farming. So hopefully they can stop the downward spiral. Carol joins me in wishing you a blessed Christmas. Love, Pete. I want to just finish by reciting a poem that fell out of my mother's precious cookbook after she had finished her downward spiral with liver cancer. And the poem read, God give me sympathy and sense, and keep my courage high. God give me calm and confidence. And please, God, a twinkle in my eye. Pete surely had that twinkle in his eye to the very end. He was loved by everyone in this church and will be greatly missed by all. Amen.
Hello. I'm on the opposite side of the timeline as Aunt Kate. I'm probably one of the newest family members. I'm Jose Rolon. I was married to Tim Merell, and before he passed away 2 years ago. There's a couple things I wanted to share with you guys, and the first is the first time that I came up to visit the Merell Farms. I was really nervous to meet the rest of the family. I already met Susie, Teo, and Nico, but they were easy because they've been in Brooklyn forever and they're like Brooklynites. But this time I was meeting a bunch of farmers, right? Species completely foreign to me. And Tim warned me. He was like, you know, they'll sit around the dinner table with a gallon of milk and they'll just talk farm. You know, which cows are sick, how good or bad the season has been, or how they hired a Mexican. It's true, his words. Meeting Lori was actually far easier than I thought. Within a couple of hours, we talked about things with emotional grit. She just spoke my language, and it was just really amazing. Mom greeted me with her 100-watt smile, which lovingly my son has. But she looked at me with some curiosity. But then Dad, like, that was the worst I could have imagined how it went down. It just, you know, the initial meeting. Not only did we sit across from each other at the dinner table and not speak a single word, but he asked questions and talked about me as if I wasn't there. And, you know, it would just get worse and worse, because then he would lean over and talk to Tim and say, you know, Tim, does Jose understand how things work around here? And did you show Jose the barn? I'm like, dude, I'm right here. What's up with this guy? Like, he's not talking to me. And I really actually started to fume. I was getting all hot at the table. And I remember even going to bed that night feeling frustrated, and I even said to Tim, I'm like, is it because he thinks I'm Mexican? Because I'm Puerto Rican, and I'm much taller and slightly better looking. That's for you, Andrew. But the next day we took a tour of the new barn that they had just built at the end of 2007, 2008. And I wasn't going to give up, and I thought, you know, I'm going to ask the right questions and keep it all farm-related, and I did, and I learned a lot that day. And when we went to say our goodbye after a couple hours, I extended my hand. And what he ended up doing was opening his arms really wide with a big smile and came in and gave me a big hug. And that was like awesome. And every single time that I've seen him when I come to visit the farm, that's how he greeted me, with that same smile and nice firm hug. So when Tim passed away a couple years ago, one of the things I was nervous about was how much Avery resembles Tim. You know, I thought it would be too painful to stare into, you know, my son's eyes with the similar expressions, or feel sad when he smiled because their smiles were so similar. And 2 years later, I can't get enough. Every time Avery does something or gives a look that reminds me of Tim, I just melt. And it's a total blessing that Tim's left behind, along with our 2 girls. But I share this because Pete's passing made me think of this on a much larger scale. You know, I often talk about what it is to create possibilities. And, you know, you can be inspired by a thought or a cool idea, or you can meet someone who, in your gut, you know is the one, but it's in our human nature sometimes to not act on them. And, you know, we get scared or we feel insecure, but as we know, we can't create possibilities, you know, unless we put ourselves out there. And this can start with a prayer to be courageous, or taking 3 deep breaths before getting up the nerve to ask your boss for a raise, or even come up here to share a story about Pete and Tim. But it's clear that after Pete was introduced to Carol by Aunt Nancy, like more than 56 years ago, he created this possibility to be with the woman of his dreams. And I know there was a little pushback, right? Like, before you actually said yes, you asked for him to finish his master's or something like that. Something like that. Which showed how patient he was, I think. But he got the nerve to make this happen. And this one possibility that he was creating for himself, it created 5 children who inevitably found 5 spouses, who then created 12 grandchildren. Amazing grandchildren. There's 20 human beings that I'm thinking about in this room who wouldn't be in this room if it wasn't for that one possibility. And it's clear how much positive influence Pete and Carol have had, because it shows even through their grandchildren. Every single one of you are awesome. Like, I'm not even thinking, a couple of you are a little quiet, but you're all really awesome. And, you know, yeah, your parents are a big influence, but I believe it starts, every great family, just like a great business, it starts from the top and it trickles down. So if the top is solid and great, then everything else below will be awesome. And sure, this message can be said about every grandparent who passes, but this doesn't happen in every family. It doesn't happen in mine. There's 25 of us grandchildren, and 24 of them are jerks. I was the one that got away. So I really feel blessed and honored that I was put into this path of possibility. I mean, Karen, Nico, Mike, and Alex, how lucky are we that we fell in love with Merrell's, right? It's pretty awesome. And they wouldn't be here. Julie, John, Lori, and Susie. They wouldn't be here without Pete, without that one possibility. So I would have never met Tim, and if it wasn't for that as well, then our 3 kids wouldn't exist if it wasn't for this one possibility. So I thank you, Pete. Thank you for being bold and courageous and allowing yourself to create your possibility more than 56 years ago. second you were flying, like you always wanted to. Now you'll fly forever, in skies of azure blue. We'll see your smile in every ray of sunshine after rain, and hear the echo of your laughter over all the pain. The world's a little quieter now, the colors have lost their hue. The birds are singing softly, and our hearts are missing you. Each time we'll see a little cloud or rainbow soaring high, we'll think of you and gently wipe a tear from our eye. That poem was by Victoria Bruce.
I'm Julie, his Pete's fifth child. I want to read from the book of Lamentations 3:22. Because of the Lord's great love we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. I say to myself, the Lord is my portion, therefore I will wait for him. The Lord is good to those whose hope is in him, to the one who seeks him. It is good to wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord, for no one is cast off by the Lord forever. Though he brings grief, he will show compassion. So great is his unfailing love, for he does not willingly bring affliction or grief to anyone. And then I have a poem that my mother wanted read, called I Am Free. Don't grieve for me, for now I'm free. I'm following paths God made for me. I took his hand, I heard him call, then turned and bid farewell to all. I could not stay another day, to laugh, to love, to sing, to play. Tasks left undone must stay that way. I found my peace at close of day. And if my parting left a void, then fill it with remembered joy, a friendship shared, a laugh, a kiss. Ah yes, these things I too will miss. Be not burdened deep with sorrow, I wish you sunshine of tomorrow. My life's been full, I've savored much, good friends, good times, a loved one's touch. Perhaps my time seemed all too brief, don't lengthen it now with undue grief. Lift up your hearts in peace to thee, God wanted me now, he set me free.
I'm Julie's husband, Alex. I'm supposed to be helping her, but I take her down with me, I think. Where would I begin to sum up my remembrance of Pete? I've known him more than half my life. And I suppose I'd offer that I never called him Pete, I called him Dad. I don't call my own father Dad. But from the first I met Pete, he welcomed me in, and I was always a son to him. Everyone's appreciated his humor. It's probably one of the things people notice most. So I'm going to share with you a letter he wrote to Julie more than 25 years ago that captures that warmth and wittiness and that sly way he had. Dear Julie, our master, Farmer Pete, told us Monday's your birthday, so all of us cows, see above group portrait, it's on Merell Farm stationery with the cows above. Took time off to send you a happy birthday greeting. Here at Merell Farms, we're still celebrating the year of the cow, so we had some leftover scratch and sniff stationery, which we hope will remind you of us. The boss, we call him John Boy, is away today at Syracuse with the pastor nominating committee meeting candidates. That leaves Farmer Pete in charge, and he walks around with his handheld radio Unit 1, giving orders like he was reliving his glorious past. Last night he took our nanny, Carol Merell, to Auburn Mall to dine out and see a film. Pizza, sundaes, popcorn, and Memphis Belle. We're all very fond of Carol Merell because of how nice she was to us as babies. Although a few of us saw her darker side when we playfully bunted her backside, causing rainbow colors to develop and gritted teeth to allow passage of those now famous words. Oh, darn you miserable little... Well, We've got to get back to work now before Farmer Pete realizes we're using his red ink for personal reasons. Don't forget to ask him to tell you his latest Russian joke. We all love you and remember the good times we had that night. You helped guide us into the new parlor way back in '86 when we were just kids. Love and happy birthday, the cows at Merell Farms. And there's a row of hooves that transformed across the page into a heart. And that was Pete, sly and subtle and among wallness.
Thank you all, family, for sharing and remembrances. And when we sort of open up the floor, you won't have to walk all the way up there, don't worry. I'll come around with the microphone, just raise your hand, and I'll kind of point at you and try and do it in some semblance of order. All right, so if anybody would like to speak or share a remembrance, okay, I see a hand there.
Hi there, my name is Eve Bradley. I've had the pleasure of singing with Pete for a lot of years in the Paul-Santi Cantata. I always knew him as a quiet, unassuming, very kind, and a generous man when it came to collecting money for cantata gifts. But the other memory, a couple memories, is my husband's the one that taught Pete and John to fly. And actually, I think he started with John, and then Pete got really interested and then expanded. So, and at that time, I remember asking Pete, could we have a tour of the farm? Because I was really fascinated. I grew up in farm country, but never actually. My family had a dairy farm at one point, but that was before I was a twinkle. And him showing us the property and the various barns and buildings, and I remember at one point we were in basically the animal care section where they kept the fridge and the meds, and there's this vial of penicillin reconstituted sitting on a windowsill in the sun, and I looked at him and I said, "Are you kidding me? I'm in pharmacy." Bad way to treat penicillin. But bless him, he'll be missed, I know, particularly by the cantata group. So I am a little envious of the family and what you have.
All right, thank you. Scan the crowd, trying to figure out the waiver, no signatures from the hand raising. Don't be shy, it's okay. All right. Here.
Hi, folks. A lot of you know I'm Don Hunt. And I just want to say a couple of things. I think I was maybe the one that got John interested in flying. Yeah. Were you riding with me that day I ran out of gas? We just landed in the hayfield and got gasoline in the thing, and we took off and flew back to the airport, which was, I kept the plane at Craig Farnsworth in North Road. And so we had that for, I don't know, 40 years or more before I sold it. But anyway, we live on a farm that was where Marge's mother grew up on Gaylord Road, and her mother's maiden name was Gaylord. There's only one house on that road, but there's a lot of turkeys and deer and all kinds of good stuff there. We've harvested some of them. And for the last several years, Pete and John, the Merell farm, has been renting about 50 acres of my land to raise their corn and alfalfa and whatever else they want to grow on it. And we've been good friends for years and years and years, and still are. Hi, John. So that's about it, I guess. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I know there's a lot of, okay, and there, I see a lot of people wiping their eyes too, so that's, sort that out. There you go.
Hi, I'm Mary Bogart, and I want to add a lot to what Carol said. She just put so much things to do the school. The school is much better because of Carol Merell. Thank you, Carol.
Okay, thank you, Mary Beth. Okay, going once. Going twice. Three times. And all God's children said, Amen.
Pete sang in his choir for well over 60 years. And he was just a choir director's delight. He was always here for rehearsal, always here on Sunday.
He sang well.
But he loved to sing. And for the choir, he was a huge inspiration. We treasured him, and he will be deeply missed. However, I think he's right up there in heaven. He's looking down on us. Coming with his Red Sox on. And he is going to sing right along with us.
Good Hello, I'm Nate, Pete's grandson, and I'm going to share a passage from the Gospel of John. I am the way, the truth, and the life. Let not your hearts be troubled. Believe in God. Believe also in me. In my Father's house are many rooms. If it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and will take you to myself, that where I am you may be also. And you know the way to where I am going. Thomas said to him, Lord, we do not know where you are going. How can we know the way? Jesus said to him, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you had known me, you would have known my Father also. From now on, you do know him and you have seen him.
I'm Karen, Pete's daughter-in-law, John's wife. I'm going to read from Revelations 21. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. And I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, See, the home of God is among the mortals. He will dwell with them. They will be his peoples. And God himself will be with them. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. Death will be no more. Mourning and crying and pain will be no more. For the first things have passed away. And the one who was seated on the throne said, See, I am making all things new. Also he said, Write this, for these words are trustworthy and